Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the Angel Rock. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. You are listening to United Public Radio Network, or sometimes we're known as the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. And we are broadcasting to you live out in New Orleans, Louisiana. I want to give a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo, who is the owner of UPRN, as well as he has many of his own incredible shows. One on Wednesday night that he has. He has a Friday night one, The Centralist. He does the Gray Zone Uncensored with the lovely, wonderful Michelle DeRoche on Saturdays. Also, if you are just tuning in and you're listening live and you want to watch the show, please come over to our YouTube channel, which is UFO Paranormal Radio. You can look that up. We are also broadcasting to you tonight from the second of our three channels, which is extraterrestrials, UFO extraterrestrials and gods. I think that's how you say it. Please forgive me if I didn't quite get it right. You'll find us on the UPRN, the first one I mentioned, or if you're on Facebook, please go over to you can look it up under UPRN or UFO Paranormal Radio, the Facebook page, because if you leave comments on my profile, I don't get to see them till afterwards. And those of you that follow the show know I love to involve you in part of the conversation, make you part of the show, and I'd love to see your comments or questions and a little bit about the show if you haven't been here. Either way, welcome to everybody. This show, I say, cover all aspects of the esoteric, the supernatural, and a little bit of truth seeking in there thrown in the mix from time to time. And the guests that I have on, whether they're sorry, my mouth is not working. What they're doing either extracurricularly or professionally, they are making a positive change for humanity. A little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, a spiritual teacher and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. Tonight, we have a wonderful guest for you. I have to give a huge shout out to Gavin Lee Davies. He is the wonderful person for PR with John Hunt Publishing, and he always sends me the best guests, I should say, and tonight is no exception. I'm going to read her bio first. Our guest tonight is named Alessandra Segrado. I'm just going to read what he wrote here. It is certainly unusual to have the origin story of a book founded on overcoming challenges. Alessandra's story, however, is quite unique as the solution arrived at for, sorry, I'm typo here, arrived leading to a powerful, fulfilling life, connecting to all aspects of what is generally accepted. So I'm going to take these glasses off to make the human experience, namely on physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. She grew up as an adopted, quarter Black, bisexual female mystic in a house of strict Salvation Army ministers. I'm sure that's going to give us a lot to talk about. Leaving an abusive marriage and going through a divorce and subsequent bankruptcy, only to face a walnut-sized inoperable tumor growing inside of her brain. And I understand that it was brain cancer, and she's been through this twice. So definitely going to talk about some of the things that she's done to heal herself. These are just some of the things that have made her who she is today, completely healthy, free, and living a life of bliss. Throughout her life, she's lived a dichotomy of two worlds, one of business as a high-level corporate consultant and successful business owner, and one of a spiritual explorer, mystic, and teacher. She has been privileged to touch thousands of lives over the years as a recording artist of guided meditations, a public speaker, and of course, a retreat leader. Along the way, creating a new system of approaching spirituality in a way that some have called a paradigm shift. She now felt it was worth sharing with the world by having her wonderful book, Soulphoria, published. Welcome, Alessandra. That's quite the
Thank
bio.
you.
I love it.
There's a lot in there, but thank you for the beautiful intro.
Well, I can't take credit for it. That was from Gavin, and I was trying to see it with my glasses. I just realized, oh my gosh, like everything's blurry. I do want to say I found out just before the interview. I figured that Alessandra was, but she is a fellow Canadian like myself. So nice to have a fellow Canadian on. Welcome.
Yes, well, thank you. And thank you definitely to Gavin and John Hunt, who were been amazing with my book. So, yeah.
Just love, you know what? And I tell everybody this, sometimes on the air, sometimes off. I've had Gavin actually as a guest on the show as well. But you know what? He is such a dream to work with for somebody like myself that does a show. And we have people that have books and what have you. I never have to ask him for everything. He has everything all in one page. He makes it so hard when we're dealing with other PR agents that don't work like he does.
So organized.
Well, it's such a high standard too,
Yes,
right? Like you
it's
kind of
true.
wish everybody was doing the same.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
I hope to goodness that we are broadcasting here on YouTube. If you guys are, please let me know. We had this problem last week and I didn't find out until the end of the show. So, and I have no idea why. They were supposed to be looking into that. So hopefully, because I only see one person here right now. So let me know, guys, if you're on YouTube. Please say hello. We'd love to see that you're there. So you've got this interesting life. Where do you want to start? My goodness, what an upbringing to come into the world with.
We can start right at the very beginning.
Sure.
I was raised in a very religious home. So I was raised by Salvation Army ministers. So that
Wow.
includes like there's no alcohol in the house, there's no smoking, there's very
Yeah.
little freedom. You can't really dance or anything like that. It's a very restrictive upbringing.
And you were adopted too.
And I was adopted as well. And so I
Okay.
had 3 older brothers, and all 3 of them were natural born, and then there was myself. But I mean,
Oh,
it's nothing. My parents were
difficult.
very loving. I mean, very good parents. It was just a disconnect. Like I always felt like I was literally completely out of place.
Oh,
So
that's really, really difficult. And especially, I was listening to another interview. It sounds like you were a really kind of carefree, joyful child that liked to dance and
yes.
move. And sounds
So
like
I
that.
would spin
Mhm.
and that's when I actually had my first real esoteric experiences. I was a little girl in my room, and I remember in Saskatchewan and Saskatoon.
Okay.
And that's for all the Canadians who would know where that is. No
Hmm.
one else would know where that is. But I was spinning around, and I started thinking if I spin faster and faster, I could feel myself almost trancing out, not knowing what I was doing. But because I
Wow.
couldn't dance, I would spin, and that would actually set me into a state where I would start to see different entities and experience different beings in different dimensions.
I was just going to ask you, you know what? It's so funny when I have people on my show, we almost get into the synchronicity because I was going to ask you. So you must have experienced, like you said, different entities and beings and what have you. How did you process that as a little child? Because I'm sure you couldn't discuss it with your parents, could you?
No, I would never be able to discuss it with my parents. And I guess one of the um, grateful skills I've had since being a child is being aware, very aware of what you can say to certain people. Maybe it was just an
Yes.
instinct that had to be developed very
Yeah.
quickly into me, but you just learned very quickly that certain things were not accessible or acceptable to be discussed, and other things could be. So no, it was something that, and as a child, honestly, we are so open and we are so
Yes.
accepting of different things and different people and different energies. That's one of the things I try to teach people, is to tap back into that childlike side, to be able to experience the world through those eyes, because that can open up your intuition and your whole cosmic connection to a different level.
I'm smiling because as a spiritual teacher and mentor myself, and I remember years ago when I started re-tapping into my abilities that I'd always had but not realized. And, you know, when teaching people, part of it, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. No, we're not imagining things, but we're getting into that childlike space where imagination, anything is possible, you know, looking at it with curiosity and openness and being open to what comes to us, even remembering
Yes.
how to play shadow work, going back and nurturing those parts of your childhood that, you know, because
It's
as I
true.
always describe it, right? As children, like you said, you quickly learned who you could say what to. So in a
Exactly.
way, we almost file it away at that age. We're like a sponge, right? From 0 to 7. And we file it away that, oh, that's bad. That's bad with certain people. And it goes into the bag with the shadow that we carry with ourselves, right?
Yes, and
Hmm.
that's something I try to also speak to in the book, is releasing those almost religious upbringings. I call it the spiritual striptease, where we remove all the masks off and allow ourselves to be free of the different religious and sometimes spiritual dogmas that can weigh on us and cause us damage.
Mm-hmm. So, like you said, you grew up in this type of household. You had beautiful parents. You just never really felt like you belonged. And so how did you end up in the past that you are? Because like you're wearing two hats, right? With the corporate business and then really getting into the spiritual side. You don't hear about that very often, and being able to marry the two successfully.
Well, I've always been, the mystic was something I stepped into when I was very young. And that's where I was meaning that as a child, I would spin. So
Mm-hmm.
I would really open up, and I just always had this connection that there was something more around us,
Right.
something different. And it wasn't a God that was going to look down on us and judge us. It was nothing
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just an experience, something beyond what we're experiencing. So that's something I've always known. And when I actually hit my later teens and early 20s, I actually started working in the corporate world.
Okay.
And I was doing my business degree at that point. And I was out for cocktails after a work event in Calgary.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm name dropping Canadian things
here. I think some people have heard of Calgary. It's a pretty big city. Yeah. Okay.
So we were out for cocktails, and it was actually, she said to me at this point in time, when I was probably about 21, I was working for a large corporation. She said to me, she knows, there's something very different about you, and there's something more that you should be doing with your life. You should. And I just felt this triggering in this, my hair standing up on my arms, and really absorbing what she was saying. And she was kind of encouraging me to go out there and actually experience more of myself and the different layers of life, and actually start to explore more of those abilities to tap into the external dimensions.
And was this a mentor of yours or a teacher or a
It was
prof?
just someone I was working with.
Oh, someone you were working with.
It was a consultant I was working with. Yeah. And so what happened is after that, I came back to Vancouver. And I was taking a course, a public speaking course at a university there. And actually, I'm not. Oh, at the public speaking course, one of the students in the course with me actually suggested I check out a place called Banyan Books. Okay. And Banyan Books is a very well-known in Vancouver spiritual bookstore. It's got a lot of spiritual philosophy and mystic practices and all of those fun other dimensional components. So I went down there and I checked that out, and that kind of tricked me into it further. And then from there, my ex-husband actually had a teacher who he had really connected with, and they started talking about the fact that I'm into the mystic. So all these different things, these stepping stones kind of brought me to this one place. It all just, when it tripped in my brain, the domino just kind of all trickled over.
I always like to get into this story because everybody has a unique story, how it all plays out. For example, I worked quite a bit in palliative care, but I always say I've been so blessed at the beginning of my career to be there hundreds of times at the beginning of life, working in the NICU and then working out in the community. There was a lot of technical stuff we did, but I really gravitated towards the palliative care aspect, right? Because we get to see end of life. And I have to say, I almost didn't take the job working in the community because I was going to be working in the most dangerous part of the city, low income, lots of murder, rape, you name it was in this. And I was on my own being a community nurse, right? They wouldn't have known where I was for 2 weeks. I only went to my office every 2 weeks. And I'm so glad I took it because of the lessons I learned. So there was that kind of opened, if you will, the palliative care, a bit of a trigger because I'm writing a book. I'm writing 3 books, but one of them I'm collecting stories right now from nurses and first responders of the incredible, amazing, unexplainable things we witness at the end of life. So that opened the door. But my experience, the extreme paranormal is what got me on this path.
Really?
Living in a house that was my partner's he's been thrown 15 feet across the kitchen. You wouldn't believe this is just crazy, this story. And it was in our previous home. We finally left about 2 years ago. We've shared it on TV before. We've shared it with Paranormal Survivor on the Travel Channel. And it didn't quite happen the way it said on TV, but the beautiful thing is it's allowed me to do what I'm doing now, speaking with people like yourself, for example, but listen to your story, and the thing is you listened. You know what I mean? Like these things fell in place and you took advantage.
Well, and I was drawn to it. Like I said, I've always been drawn to it. I mean, being raised in a Christian household and being at the age of 12, trying to go to the library to find books on witchcraft, just to find anything that would allow me to explore anything beyond this realm. So, I mean, I think some people are just drawn to it. And then when it's time, the pathway will open up for you and you just kind of follow it along and it will take you along. So,
you know what I think is powerful though, that how protected you were at that age, because a lot of damage and things could go wrong with somebody, say 12, looking at books about witchcraft and spells. And yeah, but we're never alone in this lifetime, right?
No, never. And that's, I'm going to just go back to my book for a minute. That's one of the chapters in my book is called The Flirtation of the Cosmos.
Well, let's just go through your book because we keep kind of heading there. So let's go, because I was going to get to the point about why and how you wrote it. And because I'm very curious, and I'd heard a little bit with some of my research about it, but I'd love for our listeners to hear all about it and what it's about.
So let's go back to why and how I wrote it.
Okay.
I was writing this book for a number of years. Like I probably spent 10 years just journaling. So if anyone out there is wanting to actually write a book, just journal. Start by journaling, because from all the journalings, it started to formulate something. And it was actually when I got my first cancer diagnosis in 2019 that the book came back out for me. It was just like, okay, now I have to finish this off. Now I have to work on this. And so I started working and plowing through it. And by the time I was done my chemotherapy, I had my first draft done. And a year later, I had my agreement with John Hunt. So it was an amazing gift. So that's really where the book was birthed, through my lifetime of my different experiences. And finally, the cancer was the real trigger.
So with the cancer diagnosis, what, if you don't mind sharing, what was going through your mind that you realized now is the time to get this book out there? Like, was there a change in thought, change in the way you looked at the world?
Everything becomes more precious. Every moment, every experience. Like I'm sitting here today and outside my window, I can see a lake and trees. And every time I do, it's just, everything is brighter. And, I think at that point in time, when I first got my diagnosis, I don't have any recall of my diagnosis. I was in such a state of shock that there was a couple of days where, and then they had to do a brain biopsy. So they actually drilled in and they took a piece of my brain out. So when I woke up in the hospital, I think you start looking at things differently. You start thinking, what have I wanted to do with my life? You actually start looking at it like, what if I only have, because I had lymphoma, and brain lymphoma is very hard to, it's not like there's no surgery or anything like that they could do for it. So you start looking at how you're spending your time and what you actually want to be doing and what you feel like. This is where the alignment of the soul, the body, and the mind really come in. And you're like, okay, I know what I might have physically wanted and what I might have mentally wanted, but what has my soul wanted? What has she wanted to express out through her? And that's really where the book was born from, the birthing moment.
You know what, though? I think that's so important, because when we get into this field and, you'll hear many people talk about it, it's about the mind, body, soul. But I think you just hit the nail on the head, because for the longest time, I kept trying to figure out, well, what exactly are you trying to say here? And just what you just said there really makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people don't think about their soul. We take health for granted. We take everything for granted that is great in life, and it's going to keep going on forever and ever and ever. And then you have this major life-threatening health crisis, and you basically took lemons and turned it into lemonade, like, because you did.
Yeah. It's true. It's also helped me to realize the power of resilience, which is something else I'm trying to also share out more into the world, is how you can build up your own resilience, because the more resilient we are, the more we can handle, the more open we are to good things happening, because the more risk we're willing to take. So
Yeah, that's important. I've listened to Dolores Cannon before, and she just happened to fall into my YouTube feed. I do a lot of resin work and creativity. That's where my thing is, where meditation comes and what have you, right? And it started playing, and some of the things she's talking about when she was alive, we're seeing come to fruition now. But the parts that were really getting to me is listening about the healing, because I do healing work as well. But you're the second author I've had on this month that has had an inoperable brain tumor and
wow.
is still here today, has written a book. But she was talking about, and I truly believe this, it's part of the message I like to share, is we are so much more powerful, incredible beings than we've ever been taught to realize, and how powerful our minds are, our emotions, what comes out of our mouth. And
It's
people,
true.
again, don't realize it. So let's get into your book, because I think that there's a lot of things in there that would really help a lot of people, even just starting out, because we're getting a lot of newly awakened people, I'm finding, over the last couple of years, especially.
Okay, so I will walk you through
Sure.
the book process, because it's almost like I wrote the book so that anyone, wherever they are in their path, whether you've been practicing spirituality and exploring it for 10 years or you're literally just
I'm
starting out.
glad you said that, because I made it sound like a beginner's guide, and it's not
No,
everybody. And I apologize. I just was marveling at somebody that's so new to this, and everything is just so overwhelming. It just seemed like such a great place to start, but you were right. The whole concept, it's for everybody.
it is,
Mhm.
yeah. So the way the book unfolds is there's 6 parts to the book, and every
Mhm.
part of the book has a teaching and it has exercises at the
I love
end,
it.
because I really wanted to, it's called Soulphoria,
Mhm.
a practical and provocative approach to spirituality. And
I love
so
it.
I really wanted to make sure that people could actually apply it instead of just hearing me talk at them.
Mhm.
So the first part of the book is called The Flirtation of the Cosmos. This is where we're learning that we're not alone. This is where we're learning
Yes.
that we have our ancestors, that we have our spiritual guides, that there's the elements that we can be tapping into: fire and water, air and earth, that there's all these different components that have been waiting to help us. And we just have to learn how to listen to
Yes.
them. So that's the flirtation of the cosmos. From there, we go into embodying the soul. And this is where we're actually really learning to allow our soul into our physical body, because this is something that is really important. I think that we all have to realize is, yes, we are more than a physical human, but we are still our body, and our body
Mhm.
needs to be considered precious, and you need to take care of
Mhm.
it. And how beautiful it can be when we actually experience, we allow our soul out to
Mhm.
experience the world through our body. So that means stopping to smell the roses. It can mean,
Yes.
really connecting inwards with yourself, but also externally. So it's about that tangible experience and learning how to care for your physical form. So that's embodying the soul. From there, we go into the spiritual striptease. Now, the spiritual striptease is one of my favorite chapters, simply because it's teaching you about how to uncover and discover those masks that we've been taught to wear. Like, I need to be this woman, or I need to be
I
this
talk
person,
about that lots.
right?
I didn't realize how much, and we do. We wear different masks in
Yes,
every role that we play.
it's
And
true.
sometimes we wear a mask with ourselves too, when we're not
It's
being honest or really
it's
seeing the face in the mirror. Hmm.
yeah, it's completely true. And so, religions can have placed those masks on us or taught us that we're not good if we don't currently wear this veil or this specific way of being. So I'm teaching people how to recognize those in the spiritual striptease and how to remove them.
I
Now,
love it.
after that, we go into the sublimely naked soul. This one I think is really important, because so often we are taught to recognize and remove the masks, but we're not actually encouraged in ways of how to actually solidify who we've become. So the
Yes.
sublimely naked soul means you have no more masks on, and you're actually able to go out into the world and share yourself proudly and confidently as the new you, realizing that your relationships may evolve, your friendships may change, that people might come and go because you have evolved and you have changed, and to learn to be okay with that and to be confident and proud of who you are in that space.
I think that's so important, because it definitely will happen when and it doesn't have to be a spiritual or mystical journey. It can be anything in life. But when we make a change, for example, I was married before and had gone through a divorce. All of my childhood friends, none of them speak to me. I never had a disagreement with them or anything like that. It was, They weren't happy in their marriage. They all expressed this to me too. They weren't happy in their own marriages, many of them, and so they were jealous. They would say they were jealous, and it was difficult for them. But maybe their husband made too much money or whatever, or
It's true. Yeah.
and I thought, oh my God, like, am I crazy? Like, what is going on? And I've talked to so many people, not just women, it's men too, that they've had the same experience.
It's the reflection. When you see in
Mhm.
something, someone in something that maybe you would
Triggers.
like to have for yourself,
Mhm.
but maybe you're not there yet to be able to access it, it can cause you to
Do
become
you
uncomfortable.
cover that in that part of the book? Because I think it's so important, but it's
I do.
a growth. I love it because I haven't heard of many books that do. But when we are triggered by somebody, or somebody really pushes our buttons or makes us angry, there's a message in that. Like you said, there's something within ourselves, I believe, that we are not addressing or looking at,
It's
and it's
true.
staring us right in the face.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
very true.
Mhm.
The next part of the book is called Becoming a Mistress of Mysticism.
I love it.
And this part of the book can be for men or women. I've just leaned towards the feminine side. We talk about becoming your child side and healing the child
I
side
love it.
and learning how to apply the child side, your teen side, and your woman side. And so often we've forgotten about the teenager. And that's the side I think is really important for people to reconnect with, because I always give the example, not just by healing your teenager, but also think of, like, let's say you're going into a business meeting and you need to be a little bit cocky, a little bit on the edge, a little bit bringing yourself out there. You can pull on that teen energy to
I
help
like
you
that.
to go into that meeting for that. So in the Mistress of Mysticism, we talk about the three sides, as well as we talk about ritual and being the creator of your own life.
So when you say ritual for people, I'm sure some people out here just hearing this for the first time. What do you mean by that exactly? So you don't have to give everything away in the book, but just sort of in
No.
generalization.
So ritual, I'm referring to talking about putting together like full moon or new moon
Oh,
rituals,
I
things like
love
that.
it. Love
Yeah.
it.
So every part of the book, it touches on every aspect that I've just
Hmm.
said. Now, my next stage will be to I want to develop programs, workshops for each part of the book,
Ooh.
so that if you pick up, for example, you pick it up and you love the Mistress of Mysticism and you want to go deeper into it, there's only so much I could fit into the one book. So
Yes. Hmm.
yeah.
I hear you.
And then
It
the
sounds
last
like there's many books in there.
Yes, exactly. And then the
Uh,
last part of the book is called Soulphoria, which is just
okay.
the finale of it.
Well, we can talk about it because I think it's important. We're just
Okay.
going to use a little bit different language because well, go ahead. Maybe we'll just use the word pleasuring oneself instead, just because we're on the hour we are. But I think it's important to talk
Okay.
about this.
So that is actually in the embodying the soul aspect of the book. So
Hmm.
embodying the soul aspect of the book, I talk about the fact that if you're actually going to consider yourself a beautiful thing and you're going to actually embrace yourself, then self-pleasuring is an important aspect for your soul to connect with your body in a different way. And you
Hmm.
could reach a different level of meditation as well as manifestation through that. Because if you think about it, when you actually reach that peak of self-pleasure,
Yeah.
then you have all this energy that's going somewhere. You can
Yes.
direct that energy into your manifestation and you can apply that, or you can simply bring it back into your body and do healing. There's a lot of beautiful things that we
That's
can
why
do
I
with
wanted
that.
to talk about this because I don't have a problem talking about it. Just we're kind of on family time zone, depending on where we go out. So I know we had to be a little bit careful navigating the wording because I'm very open about talking about these topics. But the reason why I think it's important, Alessandra, is because there's not many people talking about. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you. It's not even cold. There's not many people talking about this type of energy, and we've all been led to believe, or many, especially in North America, about the body and other countries, even more so. There's women covered from head to toe instead of embracing this body that we've been given, right?
Well, and even on the spiritual side, there's so many spiritual practices that teach you only have so much energies. I'm going to call it pleasure energy dollars.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that once you've spent that, you're done. And that's why you need to save it for your creativity or other things like that. But if we truly believe that the universe and the world around us is infinite energy, and you believe that
Yep.
you can pull in the energy back into yourself, then all you're doing is constantly cleansing your energy. You're detoxifying yourself, and you're allowing fresh energy in for new things.
I never even thought about that till I always research my guests that come on, and I was like, this really resonates with me because we've been led to believe that this is a terrible thing through religious dogma, depending on what you follow or maybe what you've been taught as a child. Like I have boys and I know little boys. I mean, even in the womb, and I'm not saying that girls don't, but I'm just saying, you know, they've got something there to, and they know it feels good, and they're taught when they're little, you can't be doing this, or you can't be doing this here, or you can't be doing it there. But the thing is, you are right, and one of the laws of the universe is, right, energy can't be created nor destroyed, but it could be transferred from one place to another. So like you said, pulling that energy in and embracing it all, because as I always like to say, even coming from a big pharma background, I always look for something natural unless it's like majorly life threatening and acute and it needs to be dealt with immediately. Because I think that our creator has provided us with everything on this planet that we need, including a body that heals itself. But because of what we have encountered either through past lives, could be trauma, spiritual, could be anything, and we hang on to it and we don't release it, it starts to develop into, as one of my favorite, I use her works a lot, Ina Segal calls it dis-ease or disease, right?
Well, and I think there is something in the idea of bringing together modern medicine and spiritual wisdom
Yes.
and the other
Yes.
dimension. And when we can find harmony between those two things,
Yes.
we can find harmony within our physical forms.
Mhm.
And even when I went through chemotherapy, I went through 15 cycles in total over the last 3 years.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and I actually just finished my chemo at the beginning of February of this year.
Oh, wow.
So
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
So, even when I was doing my chemotherapy, I would actually spend time talking to every organ within my body. I would talk
Love
to
it.
my brain starting first to let it know it would be healing. And then I'd
Mhm.
move through to my liver and let it know it's going to have to do a lot of detoxifying. And I'd go through
Mhm.
every system and let it know. And I still continue to talk to my organs at least once a
Yes.
day, smiling at them because they're a part of us and they're living cells. And so the atmosphere that we create can affect our health.
I agree. And the other thing too that I just sent somebody this message today. They're finding the energy on the earth right now. We're seeing I've been running into a lot of people, been feeling a lot of heart palpitations and things like that, right? And they're scared, and I don't blame them when you feel, your heart's pounding and well over 100. And so I've been, again, if it gets acute, you can't breathe, but obviously I'm not going to diagnose somebody, but I always say, maybe you should get it checked out if it doesn't settle with your practitioner. But I've also said, I know these people well that I've been talking to, they go into meditation. Go into meditation and talk to your body. Like you said, ask it, what is the message for you? Because I truly believe that pain or any symptomology that we feel coming from our physical form, that's its voice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Mhm. And then I think, like I said, I'm surprised you're bringing up Dolores Cannon again, but really resonated with me. And she'll tell people she wasn't psychic. She just talked people into almost like that trance type of hypnosis. And she would call it the collective consciousness that she always connected with thousands and thousands of people. But she said the body was so little is, but she's since passed. But she would say, like, when somebody would come in with a back problem, she would know exactly what the issue was because she had dealt with thousands of people that the subconscious would tell them. And they're literal. You're carrying too much. You feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're juggling a million balls in the air and so on and so forth.
I think there is definitely truth in that. I
Mhm.
think we also have to be careful, though, not to um, turn it around that the person's not doing enough work. And this
Oh,
is one
I
of my
hear you. Yep.
concerns with, like, there's certain philosophies out there that, oh, this, you got sick because of this and this, and that
Oh,
means you're not
no, and I
meditating
don't
enough, it
like
means you're
that
not
either
energy enough.
because then we're
Yeah,
putting
and that's
blame, and
exactly.
nobody would ever, ever consciously choose say what you
No,
have been through.
of
Mhm.
course not. No. And I
Mhm.
think I find often that spirituality has almost gone a little bit toxic at times.
I agree 100%.
And it's something I think that it's just to ground it back down. And I mean, one of the other things that I speak about in the book is the idea that so often we can come from a religious background and we drop the religion, but then we adopt all this other spiritual dogma.
Absolutely.
And it's just replacing. I mean, you may not have a God, but you still have this good and bad, karma, no karma, punish, reward. Like it's still, we're just swapping. And I think that that's not healthy either. It's about,
I was wrestling with what she was saying about, I still, again, I always say I don't know all the answers. I don't think any of us will till we transition back home, as I call it. I've studied near-death experiences professionally and personally for about 40 years. I just find it so fascinating. And I believe I had one as a toddler myself. But my point is, that is one thing she talks about that does not resonate with me, that it's all karma. You're creating karma. You're going back. You're just going to have to come back and keep doing it, keep doing it. To me, I kept thinking, what's the point? Like there would be no point to this to me, that you just keep coming back and doing it over and over. So I think that the word karma gets very much misused.
muddled.
And
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and
I think
go ahead.
There's just needs to be an awareness about adopting anything as dogma or truth. I mean, unless it's a scientific fact, I think we just have to watch the adoption of dogmas that literally are replacing religious ones, because we're just swapping the players within the game.
I have to agree with you. And the other thing, I think we find this in any field, but it's always, what I've got to say and what I'm doing is better than what you're doing or what you're doing, or I've got all the answers. I'm the one. I've often said, if somebody tells you that they guarantee you 100%, run, because we're human. And in the spirituality field, I'm finding the same. Rather than recognizing, because I believe we are all here for a reason, and also we are all part of each other, but we all have a little piece, if you will, to add, that there's going to be a message for everybody to hear, regardless of who the speaker is. Your message will find the people that are meant to hear it, is what I'm trying to say.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. I was going to add to the part about the self-pleasuring, that I think it's within the MMA field, especially I've seen this sometimes with baseball, and boxing, that I know it seems that those that have, if you will, coaches, I don't know if they call them that, but I'll say coaches, that will forbid their boxers or fighters from engaging in any activity, extracurricularly, if you will, and until after the match, because they want them, whether they're going to say have that
they
release
want that
in the ring,
testosterone pumping through,
but have that release in the ring, because like you said, or even I'm getting goosebumps again, or even in the morning of, right, to have that release, to pull that all in, what's out there, to get that mentality going, to get it all in sync. So I think there's a lot to this. We've got quite a few comments here. Thanks, guys, for commenting. I appreciate this. So Kathy Lampert says, we do choose our life experiences before we incarnate. Yes, I agree. We can also choose to amend, break contracts with others while still in the present incarnation. I agree. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I completely agree that we choose our life experience. I actually have in Soulphoria, in one part of the book, I have something called the story of the soul. It's the story of Angia. And I tell the story as I've done in a channeling before, of actually seeing the soul, the energy form and choose its family and actually incarnate into the body and then move through its life. So I think that we definitely do. I have to admit, I'm still not solid on the whole destiny concept, but I do believe that we have destined points along our path.
Yes.
And that we can choose our roadway and how good it will feel to get to those destined points. But there are different points that are definitely destined.
I agree 100%. I struggle with that too, because again, I get to the point, if it was all predetermined, why bother? right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So to me, and we are, so I agree, Kathy, with what you're saying, that I do. And most people that are new to this concept, that we've chose our parents and we've chose the people that we're incarnating
It
with.
makes
And
people uncomfortable. They
mhm,
they they'll say, "Well, I would never have chosen," but
mhm,
this is not you.
yeah,
This whole thing is you. So
mhm,
that's the you choose your DNA, you choose where you're going to be born,
yeah,
you'll choose all of those different
yeah.
things.
Yeah, and I know, or I'll get people, I'm sure you've seen this yourself as a mystic and public speaker, that people will write you and they're in a lot of pain. They've lost maybe somebody they really love. I had one person in particular, it was a beloved pet, and it was very unexpected. She was a pet parent. And I always say it doesn't matter who you love, if you're somebody relying on you to nurture and care for. But she was blaming God and she was having a hard time with this. And she was open to having a discussion and seeing a way of thought that she had never, ever considered before.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm. I didn't know if you were going to say something. That's why I
No,
stopped,
no,
because
I was going
I
to
thought,
say all grief is grief. There's no,
yes.
if
Hmm.
you've lost something, whether sometimes we grieve about different aspects of our life. Like
Absolutely.
when I went through my diagnosis, I grieved.
Oh,
I had a grief
absolutely.
of the innocence that I had about life previous to it. So I
Hmm.
mean, we will grieve, and we can't label the weight of that grief that that person's experiencing.
That's, I think I was starting there with the palliative care because I think it's so important. And in university with my nursing degree, well, it's in psychology too. It's the five stages of death and dying with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I always have said, should never, yes, it can be applicable, but it should almost be called the five stages of loss and grieving, because it doesn't matter what it is, a marriage, a job,
It's
moving a
true.
house, whatever it is, we go through this process. And for people that are unable to see that, or maybe they haven't lost a big thing in their life, they think you should be over it. Well, you've had enough time, or
It's true.
it's
Yes.
so personal.
And I think it's important for anyone that's listening, or anyone out there that needs to hear it. It's important to realize you're allowed to grieve, and to give
Yes.
yourself the time and the space that you need to grieve, and
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who will support you in it, who won't coddle you, but will support you and love you through the process, because we have to be able to experience our feelings.
Hmm. No, I agree with you. And some of the other things that I've shared with people is, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And there's going to be things in there that you'll think you're okay. Like maybe, time has passed a large amount of time, and then the most innocuous things set you right back. And
It's
that's
true.
okay to be able to do that. And so I really, really feel for people that are going through grieving and loss. And I wish that also that death became a more acceptable topic, because we are all going to die one day.
It's true.
Hmm.
It's true. That's a very good point.
I
Yeah.
love what they've done. And I see there was a bit of a series a couple of years ago in Ireland, but when they've had the wake, for example, death is very normalized, right? I know it's not so common now as it was back, say 20, 50, 75 years ago, but children were allowed, like children would be playing and we'd celebrate the life. And,
I
you know,
think
the,
that's the most beautiful way to do a passing,
Mhm.
is to celebrate the
Yeah.
life experience, or the experience that the gift that person was while they were on the planet.
Plus, they never leave us. And I never want to
True.
argue with or step on somebody's belief systems, but working within the mediumship field, they're there. They're there for every party, every celebration, every time you cry, every time you
It's
think of them.
true.
And then they'll say, well, then that means they didn't cross. No, we can be anywhere infinitesimally. There's no space and time.
It's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so you get into these concepts, and I always, like I said, I think I'm going to be a lifelong learner till the day I die, because, for example, hell, when we were talking about karma, right, with religious dogma, it took me a while. I was raised Catholic. I never resonated with it. And I always say to people, I'm not knocking religion. If you need it and it works for you, great. But I was forced to go to church every Sunday. I was forced to go to Catholic school. I never got anything out of it. Do I believe in a higher power, who I call God? I respect other people's labels for whomever their higher power is that they believe. Yes, but my smart ass answer always was, well, I was always taught that God is our Father and God is everywhere. So if those two things are true, which I believe them to be true, I don't need to go to a special building to speak to my Father.
It's
That's
true.
mhm,
Yes, that is true.
mhm.
I don't have a belief in a God. So
And that's
this is,
okay.
yeah,
That's okay. That's
yeah.
okay. Yes.
I think that we are, I guess my focus has always been on trying to bring people down into the God or goddess within them and the divine eye of them, and then allow yourself to merge with
Okay,
the
so let's
energy that's
talk
out
more
there.
about that then, the divine, because we have feminine and masculine energy in us, whether we are male or female. I believe in
Oh,
past lives, we could have been a man. I could have been a man last time and a female this time.
it's
Mm.
true. It's something else that I find curious with past lives is a lot of people seem to think, I'm not saying that you think this at all, but
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you notice this as well. When people talk about their past life or future lives, they're thinking they're bringing the same consciousness with them.
I know.
But that's the thing. You're not the same personality. You're not going to like the same
Mhm.
people or the same things as you did in this life. You're going to be a
Mhm.
completely erased with a slight haunting of memories
Mhm.
as you come through again.
Well, the other thing is too, right? I believe that we set lessons for ourselves when we come here. But I come across this concept and I really believe that Earth is a school. There are so many souls waiting to come here because regardless of whether somebody wants to call it their karma, like Dolores karma, canon, or whatever it may be, apparently this is one of the most difficult dimensions to come to. And I would agree because we come in with spiritual amnesia, we come in these clumsy, heavy, fragile bodies, right? And we're fumbling through it. Like it was so interesting to hear because I get into all kinds of different concepts looking at stuff, right? I'm very open minded. But as far as I know, we're one of the few species in the universe that we go to violence. Like we have violence all over the place here, right?
It's true. I actually consider it more of a zoo.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm
okay. That,
visiting
oh,
the human
yes,
zoo.
yes,
Like
yes.
it's, sometimes you're going around and you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I've never understood it because, and when I've told people this, and I don't say it with an air of superiority or judgment, I always say it's not my job to judge. I have never hit anybody. I've never hit my children. I came from an abusive where, I think it was part of the era of growing up. I'll be 57 next month. And that's, I mean, spanking and slaps and verbal abuse. And like, you just didn't think of the things about how your words came out. And even with that being said, and I don't go to a place of victimhood because I don't even talk about this very often, saying how I grew up, because I always say embrace it all. It's what's made you who you are today.
Mhm.
But, where was I going with this? Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought as I'm talking to you. I think when I was doing my research and I liked what you were talking about, because again, it resonated with me with contracts. If we've made contracts with people here, it's, before we've incarnated, it's okay to break them here. And I really do believe that.
I think it's okay to break them.
Mhm.
It's not something that I would encourage. I
Oh, no,
feel
no, no.
like
That's, I was just a topic for discussion,
I,
but go ahead.
my thought is that our best pathway that we can live through this life is literally by following our soul path, which means you learn to quiet everything down and tap into that. And then when you can align that soul path with your mind's desires and align that with your
I hear
physical,
what you're saying,
that's Soulphoria. That's the point of Soulphoria.
and
So
people, like you said, when we start to evolve and change, we can't expect the people around us to evolve and change.
exactly.
So it's almost like an
And
energy principle. Go ahead.
I actually feel that too often we feel like we meet people and we connect with them and automatically we think this must be a soulmate or it must be a soul contract or I
Oh, I
must have
have a
known them in a
problem with
past
that.
life. And it's and it just honestly it becomes a little bit silly because not
I
everyone we
agree.
connect with means that there's a soul contract or just everyone we're attracted to means we must be with them or we must have had a past life with them because we have this
No,
bond. It doesn't mean
no.
that.
I
Just
like to look at it like a play, if you will. I think it was somebody that had a near-death experience and came back, and this is how it really resonated. I don't know if it'll resonate with other people, but when they look back, they went, holy cow, it was all just a big play. Like I was the center of like the main character, and there was the supporting cast, but all the other actors coming in to support were waiting in the wings to come in, and they were talking about their life. So I agree with you. Not everybody you meet, like what is it, twin flame? This is what I get all the time. They've
Yes.
got to be my twin flame,
I
or
know.
they think
I know.
soulmate
I'm
is
sorry,
like
but
the love of your life. Soulmate can mean lots of things, and not everybody's your soulmate. Or
sometimes your soulmate could be your nemesis. Think of this. If your
yes,
soulmate is the person that is supposed to cause you the most growth and evolution and change, it might be the
yes,
person that has brought you the most trauma in your life or the most drama.
yes,
That's the thing.
yes.
So I think we have to let go, look for your person, the person you want to maybe live your life with, but it doesn't mean it has to be a soulmate.
Mhm. I love that you said that, because again, there's a lot of discussion I find about this, because especially with doing readings with people, and again, I'm not knocking anybody, and I tell them that confidentiality is so important to me, but they usually are about, why am I here? I'm at a crossroads. I'm not really sure where to go, or romantic love.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you were talking about Soulphoria and manifesting, I really believe that it's important not to put limits on things either. So, because people have been told that,
Yes.
well, there's only a few people that have the gifts that I have, or there's only this, or there's only, why? Because somebody told you that. We are infinite, we are immortal, we're so powerful, but when we put those beliefs and limiting beliefs on ourselves, so it becomes.
And I think with manifesting, it's important to, instead of focusing on, I know they tell you to be very specific, which I think is good if you're going to perform, if we were talking about feminine mysticism and I was talking about ritual, I would tell you to create a sigil that would be very, very specific. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about
We
overall
can.
manifesting.
I'm intrigued.
But so overall manifesting, one of the most
Mhm.
powerful things you can do is simply put yourself into the position of experiencing the feeling that you want to create, not the object, the
Mhm.
feeling. So if you're trying to manifest a vacation, imagine the feeling that you'll feel. Are you on a cruise ship going through Alaska, or are you lying on a beach somewhere? But put yourself into that feeling and focus on manifesting that, and allow the world or the universe to create for you the best version of that. Because often we limit ourselves, we put glass ceilings above ourselves, and we say, this is
Yes.
all I'm able to manifest, I'm only going to go this high. But maybe there's a lot more out there for you. So
You
once again,
just, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, once again, that's learning to listen and connect into yourself. And that is the number one starting point, I think, for every spiritual journey, is
I,
learning to hear
you
yourself.
just resonated so much with me when you said, because at first I was thinking, okay, the feeling, because I'm not a master at manifestation, I'm getting better at it. But when you said, imagine the feeling and create that feeling, and the words that you just used, I could literally picture it. I could see it. And I think that's the hardest thing for people, because there's so many people out there, again, creating limits. And you were right, when we create limits, because there could be so much more out there for us, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
And if you're going to be specific, then be careful with how specific and what type of specific you are, because you may end up creating something that wasn't exactly what you had wanted.
Right. I
Yeah.
agree. The other thing that I've been trying, well, I think I'm getting better at, and I hope that in this field that we all are starting to learn this too, that when you don't get what you want, right, there could be a very specific reason for why. More than likely, it could be something bigger, better, or avoid something that maybe wasn't meant to come into your path. There's a whole bunch of reasons,
Exactly.
right?
I often use the analogy of, if you imagine that you're on a road trip and you're driving down a street and you've
Hmm.
got your partner with you, or
Yeah.
whoever's your dog, doesn't matter. Let's say you've got your dog with you. So you're driving down the street, and let's say you have a destination, a very specific destination you're going to. And there's all these cute little towns along the way, but you're too busy. You're focused on this destination. So you drive by them until a tire pops and you're forced to pull over, and you're forced to go into this destination that you were planning on driving by. And you
Hmm.
meet these people, and this beautiful experience happens for you. And
Hmm.
that's often with our manifesting, we focus so far ahead that we forget that there's all these beautiful experiences that might happen along the way. And if we don't pay attention to that, a tire might pop on your vehicle and you might have to pull over and you might be forced into it. But just embrace it then. I mean, that's
I just love what you said. Hi, Janie. Welcome. She's over in the UK. She says we'll catch up show on the show tomorrow. Said bye. Thanks for tuning in, Jeannie. I know it's late over there. Let's talk more about what you were talking about with Soulphoria and the feminine energy. And I really want to dive into some of these concepts with your book because I think it's a very powerful, really unique book that, like you said, anybody could really use.
So which concepts were you
Were
thinking
you
of?
talking about the goddess, and
Okay, so in the Mistress of Mysticism component, again, the book I mean, I can go on and on about these
well,
parts so much.
let's, because
Okay.
you know what? I always say, I didn't say it to you before the show. The show is always about my guest. I said, I did tell Alessandra before the show, and most of you that have tuned in before, I just leave it up to spirit wherever it goes. I say, where are we going with this? But I really love the concepts in your book, and I think it could be so helpful to so many people. So you go wherever you want with it. How about that? I'll leave it open.
Okay, well let's talk about the feminine.
Okay.
So with the feminine component, one of the things that I realized when I was writing Soulphoria was that we often focus on, when we think of the word goddess, what do you picture? You picture a woman, usually a woman that's long flowing hair and is an adult female, but we never think about the different aspects of that goddess. There's a child component and there's a teenage component. And this is one of the challenges that I'm trying to bring out in the book, is for you to realize that for you to be your full goddess aspect, you need to embrace all of you, which means that you embrace your male and your female, and you also embrace your child and your teen and your woman. And the book
Okay.
will guide you through healing those different aspects, as well as learning how to play with them and build on them.
So, for example, in an aspect of pulling out the child, I have an idea what that would look like, but for our listeners and viewers, what would that look like? Where would we pull out that childlike energy and aspect?
So I would, for example, pull out that childlike energy and aspect if I was going into a creative meeting.
Okay.
So I would need a point of being creative, let's say, and I had to get really colorful and think outside the box, to think like a
Okay.
child. So
Oh,
I
there
would pull
was no
that.
box?
Yeah, exactly. To realize there is no box. What are we going to
Yeah.
do? But
Yeah.
that's when I would pull out that child side. And to do that, I have a coloring book. And so I will often take time to actually ask, okay, so my child side, I'll say, okay, so what do you want to do today? What do you want to do for the next hour? The next hour is yours. And that's really important as well, to spend that time with your different aspects. Like you can ask your teen side, what do you want to do today? I mean, don't go do anything crazy, but don't be my teen side. But
Yeah. Okay.
they're just, so maybe your teenager wants to play with makeup. Maybe she wants to get dressed up and do something crazy. Just let her out and experience what that feels like, because it's incredibly healing and it's
I
incredibly
think I've
empowering.
been doing that and I didn't even realize it. And no, I'm
Well,
not trying to act like I'm 20, but you're
that's
right. Like
good.
there's days where, you know what? I got a bunch of makeup here. Let's try some different looks, or
Exactly.
spa day today, or let's go out and play with the little guy next door. He's 5 and he's playing a game. Let's really get into his game. He can direct the play, because there's so much to learn from that.
There is. And
Mhm.
you heal so much, and you bring so much more dimension of yourself into your life, because all of those aspects exist within you. You can also do something similar. I have an altar that I've created for my
Okay.
ancestors.
Yeah.
And so what I will often do is, I think it's, if you're going to work with your ancestors, if you're going to work with any guides, take time to commit to them. Actually spend time with them, which means tending to your altar in the morning, waking them up. I will sometimes take a piece off my altar, a crystal that represents
Yeah.
one of my ancestors, and I'll take her outside and I'll
Yeah.
sit there and I'll pour a little cup of tea or a little
Oh, I love
shot of
it.
something,
Mhm.
whatever she's wanting that day. And we'll sit outside and I will try to listen and hear what they're passing on to me and have an exchange, because that relationship actually has to be a relationship. You can't just expect the cosmos and the entities to speak to you if you're not actually exchanging back with them.
Okay, so for people, and I get this all the time, and I'm sure you do, is people want to know, what are my guides' names? When am I going to hear them? When am I going to open my third eye? And I always try and tell people that we are in communication with them. I said, no, not everybody is clairaudient, or however somebody may want to label it. but we have that inner guidance, and some people do hear a different voice. I'm very, as I say, clairaudient, but I know when it's not myself because the language is a little different. There's I always give this example. For example, you're laying awake at night, you're worrying, talking the global you. You've got this horrific thing coming up, you need a solution, there's no way out, and you're going over and over and over and over and over in your mind. You can't think. And all of a sudden, there's a stroke of genius. It just comes out of nowhere. The answer is there. You follow the advice, and everything turns out beautifully. That's kind of like what it's like trying to hear, isn't it? Or connect.
It can be, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I find that often if you stare at the question too long, it will just kind of glaze over. You've got to almost remove yourself from it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, and take a small break from it and allow.
I don't mean all the time. I just sort of use it as an example that knowing the difference, like we don't know where that's, some people call it a stroke of genius. It's come from somewhere, but they will communicate. The one thing I do believe is that we do need to give them permission, as to say, I want to know you better. I want to connect with you. I want to feel you in my life. I want to be able to hear you.
And that's why it's so great to have like an altar or a little space. And it could be a shoebox. It doesn't have to be some grand thing, but just a little space in your house where you're keeping different components of it. You know, the other thing is we have to realize that all around us, there's nature. The next time it's windy outside, go outside and listen to the wind and just have the wind speak to you. The next time it's raining, go outside in the rain and allow the water to cleanse you. I mean, there's so many different ways we can connect with the messages that are being passed on with us. It's not always just through one entity.
I love it.
Through all the different elements as well. Drum or dance, turn on some music. It can be any kind of music. It doesn't have to be sacred spiritual music. It can be hip hop. It can be anything.
There's a reason why I'm called the angel rock. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I love crystals and rock music.
Exactly. So turn it on and dance, and dance with the focus of, I'm going to dance with my great grandfather right now because I want to pull on their energy and learn from them and experience them. Or I'm going to just dance with the insight and the answers that are coming to me, and watch how your body moves and how you shift and change, because often those are where the messages will come from.
I got a great tip from one of my mentors that I really loved. And what she used to do, and she had shared with us when I was taking my crystal Reiki, turn on music, like you said. There's another exercise people can do, and sit and listen, but try to hear just one of the symphony that's going on, whether it's the drums, maybe it's the bass, maybe it's whatever it is, or what other notes of instruments could you hear, and try to just focus and hear that. Again, these are just a variety of exercises, and it may not resonate with everybody, but it's doing that fine tuning.
Yes.
Now, what I loved about what you said there about the dancing, okay, and watch how your body changes and the movement. I think that when we were first talking, that was what I was trying to express that you did so beautifully, where imagination can play a role, where it opens the door, that we take off that self-consciousness, that we take off like people are going to think I'm silly or whatever it is, and just allow yourself to be free.
And allow yourself to be silly. If you're silly, be silly. And I'm silly. I'm good.
I am too.
Yeah. Just allow yourself to be what you are, and try to love yourself for it. I think that's
okay. So let's talk about that and part of your healing process, if you're open to it, because, you know, I think that's the most difficult thing for all of us. We have the worst inner voice towards ourselves, the things we say to ourselves. Most normal, sane people that with kind hearts, especially, would never in a million years say to you.
It's
so
true.
How do we start that journey? Like, never mind what we've been talking about, but is there something more that can really help people, say, on a daily basis, to start really working on this?
I would first of all tell people to start what I call a self-love affair.
I love it.
So actually attempt to start spending time with yourself. And, you know, it can be as simple as waking up in the morning and rolling over and going, hey, beautiful, to yourself. Just greet yourself like you would a lover. And when you start talking down to yourself, ask yourself, what I'm saying right now, would I say that to a child?
Yes.
Because if you wouldn't say that to a child, then you shouldn't be saying it to the inner child within you, or the you that's existing right now.
You just said that so beautifully. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. And I think that that can make a really big difference. But the self-love affair, I think, is really something also for us to explore. You know, it could be maybe every Thursday night you take yourself out for a dinner, or you do a movie night at home, or you get your favorite bottle of wine and you pour a glass and you sit out on a balcony somewhere. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you do that you're spending time with you and listen to yourself. And again, journaling is really a great way, because then you can
You
actually
know
hear the
what? I'm
conversation.
afraid of journaling. I'm going to admit it, because I did try it a few years back, and part of the healing process, and it's very healing. I literally couldn't stop. Like, I filled up half a book. So there's a lot to journal, but it's very freeing, isn't it? It's just almost a physical release of what's inside.
It is. And you can also do it. It doesn't have to be actually in a journal. It can be on the computer as well. I mean, you can just free conversation with yourself. Have a conversation, and actually, when you come back and you read the conversation you've had with yourself, you might actually be surprised with the wisdom that's in there, as well as the love that's hidden behind there.
There is, because like I say, and myself too, I'm a work in progress. We all are with self-love, and there are days that we have good days and bad days. And again, giving yourself permission that that's okay. And I like that you said, and I've used it before, I've read it before, and I think it's so important. It should be tantamount to self-love. Is, would I talk this way to a young child? And if I wouldn't, you should never be speaking to yourself that way.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's also the idea of learning to experience your emotions and accept them. So actually, we call it the 3 A's. So there's acknowledge the emotion, accept the emotion, and appreciate the emotion. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you want to acknowledge the fact that it's existing there. And then once you can acknowledge it, then you can start to go, okay, talk to myself about it. I'm feeling anxious right now. And then start to appreciate it. What's behind this anxiety? Because usually behind those intense energy, there's a beautiful treasure trove of power that's hidden within you. And once you release that, you've kind of allowed this extra energy to blossom within your system.
I like that, because I'm finding, at least in my practice, I run into a lot of people with anxiety. My eldest suffers with that, and I have a son with severe autism. So anxiety is part of our daily world. So again, I can't feel it per se, but the description that people describe it with, and we've all felt anxiety before. I'm not saying I've never felt anxious,
of course,
but some people find it so crippling. So I think that this is really helpful for people to hear.
Yeah, and even anger, it could be any emotion that you're experiencing. Don't try to push it away. Instead, allow yourself to understand it. Become curious about what your experiences are. Become curious about yourself. I mean, that's one of the best forms of self-love, is self-curiosity. Why am I feeling like this right now? Why am I hungry right now? Why do I want to do this right now? Just become curious.
I like that, because especially I can remember as a teenager growing and always hungry, and how many times have we done this, that you don't find something you want to eat in the fridge, but you're still hungry, but you're kind of bored. So you walk around the house and you go back 10 times to the fridge looking, and it's like, duh, there's nothing new has appeared.
I know. The fridge fairies didn't show up today.
Yes, the fridge fairies. Yes, exactly. No, but it's true, right? And like I said, I think it's so important to be looking at all these aspects. And it's always been important, like I said in the beginning, especially for me, to understand, why are people talking about incorporating mind, body, spirit, right? Like, what does that mean to people?
Are you asking me what it means?
Yeah,
to
I
me?
am. I'm going to ask you. I know you know. I know. But we've got people out here. This could be listening the first time. Maybe never heard this before. It's new to them, or like myself in the beginning. Well, what exactly does that all mean?
Well, for me, it means that we're allowing ourselves to embrace the fact that our spirit is within our body, and our body is our spirit. And our mind is, I used to describe it when I used to teach workshops. I used to describe it as if you imagine that the body is a vehicle, and some of us got Ferraris and some of us got Toyotas. It doesn't matter, but your body is your vehicle, which means, yeah, exactly. You want to take really good care of your vehicle. and the driver is your mind. So the driver is what allows the passenger, which is the soul who's sitting in the back
Oh, I like
seat.
that.
So the driver sometimes can get off course. The driver can go, you know what? I'm not going to listen to my passenger. I'm going to take the next left turn. And then I'm going to go over that mountain over there. And the passenger is partially asleep because we haven't woken up our soul self yet. And when he does wake up, then hopefully she'll start giving the right directions and we'll get back on track. But when you bring everything in alignment, everything is working together, which means your soul energy is feeding your physical energy and it's feeding your mental energy, and everything is in uniform. And that's where we experience soulphoria. That euphoric state is when everything is in one.
I love that. So how could people use the concept of soulphoria, to, manifest, if you will, or create a healing situation like what you've been through? Because you've dealt with, like, lymphoma. Being a nurse, that is, well, not that cancer is any laughing matter, but that is a really serious diagnosis.
Yeah. And brain lymphoma is CNS lymphoma. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to repeat myself again a little bit here, so I apologize.
Okay.
But it really goes back to your life force is your essence, your essential I, your soul self, your spirit, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter to me. But that essential energy, when you can actually really tap into that and pull that forward and feed all your cells and feed your mental state, you start to heal because you start to experience the world differently. And when you start to experience the world differently, things don't impact you the same way, which means things aren't hurting you the same way. So you're almost, I don't want to say bubbling, but you're becoming the living essence of yourself. Instead of just
so you're talking about taking that energy. Well, we're going to just use the word. It's getting later from an orgasm, we'll say. That's what we're talking about for those that may not know that. But you're using that. Now, in the after effect, because it's so much energy at the peak, when we're at resting state, is that when you're talking about taking that energy and directing it? Is that what you're thinking? Or?
So if you're talking about after you've self-pleasured and using that for, sorry, I wasn't very clear with that. If you're using that for manifesting, then if you're directing your manifestation on a focus, then you want to send it to that focus. So quite often people will create what's called a sigil, which means you take a statement and you cross out letters and you bring it down to the point that it's a symbol. And once it's in that symbol, you can send your energy towards that. However, if you don't want to do that, if you're focused on self-healing, what I would do is I would see it loop, like an infinity loop, like it loop up and then pull that energy. When you're lying there, just pull it and feel yourself being absorbed back into you, because it's just cleansed itself. It's been released, which means the stagnant energy that we hold within ourselves can be released through that. And that's one of the beautiful things that you can give yourself.
Like I said, you have a really unique book out there. And when I had read this, because Gavin always asks first, I said, oh yes, right up my alley. And then I realized there's not a lot of books that there is and there isn't. Because I think in my research, you were going to call the book a different name, right? But it already been taken?
It was going to be called Soulgasms. And that's because that was that idea of that uniform and that manifesting through it. However, the name was trademarked, so I wasn't allowed to use it.
I kind of like your name better.
I like it. It was one of those resilient points. When I got the notice about the trademark, I had just been starting chemo again this past fall. So I was just had my diagnosis, and I was a little bit of a disaster, because to have this reoccurrence and to be told, this may never go. The chemo might not be able to do anything about it, which is what I was told, because it was my second time of having chemo. And then to get this notice, it was like, what the fuck? That's what I felt like.
I hear you. Yeah.
But
like everything coming down all at once.
Yeah. But again, pulling on that resilience, and I will ask the question and then I leave the question alone. So I asked myself, my internal, my higher self, what should we rename this? And then I went and sat away from it. And then Soulphoria came together. So, because it's
good day, Michelle Pratt from Australia. Sorry, I wanted to give her a shout out. She just said good day. So, sorry, I cut you off on that last little bit. I apologize.
That's okay. I was just saying Soulphoria is euphoria felt through the soul.
I love it. I love it. And I again, depending on where you live, like I said, we even had to be careful with the word we were using just because like we're kind of at family hour with the radio and wherever it's going out on the airwaves, but really it's not a dirty word. And it's, I mean, I always think that, you know, we've been created perfectly, and everything with our body, there's always been a purpose. So that including
And what's wrong with wanting pleasure? Why
nothing,
do
except
we?
we've been told that it's bad.
And that is a
Hmm.
religious, tends to be from a
Yep.
religious structured upbringing, because they
Hmm.
don't want people to have freedom. They don't want free thought, and they don't want
Hmm.
people to experience pleasure, because that removes the control. And I mean, that's not healthy. We all deserve to experience pleasure. So,
Well, I think too that, like, and again, part of my message has always been that we are so much more powerful than we've ever been led to believe. Um, I believe we are perfectly capable of things like telepathy, telekinesis. I mean, there's been a couple of videos I've seen from tribes that had never encountered other humans, if you will. And there's one video in particular I've seen where one of their shamans, I guess, levitating in the air. Like,
wow.
he's not something incredibly different from somebody else. It's, again, we're all unique like snowflakes, but the thing is we all come with the same car parts, if you will. And I'm not minimizing us, but I think it's all about the power of the mind, like you said, connecting with the soul. And I think when you merge those two things,
Yes,
the possibilities are endless. Oh, Michelle's
exactly.
asking about men or women or both. You kind of tuned in a few minutes late. You go ahead. I'll let you refresh it for her about the goddess we were talking about a
Oh,
little bit, if you don't mind.
it can be for men or
Mhm.
women. You just reverse where I say woman with man or adult. So you can say the child, teen, adult, because it's really
Mhm.
those stages of life.
Yeah, Michelle, bring you up to speed very quickly. So Alessandra, she said, we're talking, or are we talking oil changes? No.
No, and men and women, women, I greatly encourage, and I'm going to say it, I greatly encourage women to self pleasure. If you
Yes.
cannot do that for yourself, you can't expect someone
You
else to be able
can't,
to do
you'll
it for
never,
you.
and I have met
No.
women that
Yes.
have never, ever, ever experienced this. And I've been absolutely incredulous, and they
Yeah.
haven't. But there is a lot to unpack with that usually. And you're right. If you don't know how to do it for yourself, how can you expect somebody else to?
Exactly. Be
Hmm.
patient with yourself, love yourself, be
Hmm.
curious about what feels good and what doesn't.
Hmm. Yes, yes, and there's many different ways to explore that. There is, really there is. And again, it's giving yourself permission to be free about it. And but you know what? Even in modern media, like how many memes and videos have you seen, or even episodes? I don't watch TV very often, where it's a big joke about the puppy picks up the self-pleasuring toy and brings it out in front of company, or the delivery man drops it off and the package starts vibrating. Like, I mean, yes,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with humor, but it's almost like it's underlying shame, like how dare
Yes.
you, you know?
It's using that as the
Hmm.
humor,
Hmm.
which is unfortunate. I mean, I will still giggle at those
Oh yeah,
things,
I'll laugh
but
at it too, but it's like, really, okay, it's been done already. Like, we got the point.
it's
And
true.
I do find that the younger generations, and I'm not that I'm calling myself an old lady here, I'm not a spring chicken, but what I'm saying is they seem to be more open about this. Have you found that as well?
I have found that the younger generations seem to be becoming less sexualized. I feel like they are
Hmm.
less sexual. And I mean,
Hmm.
I don't really, it's not that I spend a lot of time with people really in their early 20s discussing sex. So,
Well, I have my eldest is just turned 27. He's part of the LGBTQ community and a part-time drag queen. And so I'm kind of around a lot more, or just even people in my groups and stuff. I tend to end up, not on purpose. I say age is just a number, but I'm not going to try and pretend I'm 18. But I love to hear other people's perspectives. And not everybody, but I'm finding, oh, Michelle's just wrote, interesting. I'm finding that it's more of an open topic, if you will. Like,
well, I'm
mhm.
glad, because that will make that generation healthier. I feel like if we
Well, for
can,
my own son, for example, and I've told both my boys this, even with my youngest, he's 24, and he's, with no disrespect, like a 5 to 7 year old. But I have told both of them from the day they could understand that don't be asking your friends for advice on a topic. No topic is off limits. I made it very clear I'm not your friend, I am your mother. But if you don't know your friends know differently than don't know any different than you do, and if you're not comfortable talking with me about it, then go to an adult that you love and you know you can trust that will give you the right guidance.
That's very smart. It's very smart
Hmm.
advice. Yeah.
So we've had many conversations. My son has asked me before what happens during a heroin overdose. For example, somebody, no, there'll be parents out there that will say, you're giving him permission to go out there and do that.
No,
But
you're
am I
not.
really? I think it's
No.
important to talk. That's why I brought that up. This whole
Yeah,
thing. We need to talk about these things because we don't learn otherwise when we make these things taboo, I really believe.
it's true. Yeah.
Hmm. So, what's your plans for the next? What have you got coming up? And congratulations again that you came through your chemo. And as I understand, you're well.
Yes, I am. I'm in
I'm so
remission.
happy.
So thank
Yay.
you.
Yay. So what do you
Uh,
got on your plate? What's coming up? Like, let's hear some of this stuff. Is there another book
well,
or
I have a couple of different projects I'm working on. I am trying to, as I mentioned, turn every part of the book into a course. So
Mhm.
that if you
I
really
love it.
enjoyed the Mistress of Mysticism or the spiritual striptease and you want to do more, then
Mhm.
I will have a course that you'll be able to access. And I'm excited about that because I love teaching and leading, things like that. I'm also working on another book. So
Okay.
I have a couple more books that I have floating around, but I'm working on one specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm
Good.
also looking at starting my own podcast. So it'll,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
it'll be
Interesting.
called The Resilient Mystic.
Oh, I love the
Yeah.
title. I didn't plan on becoming a podcaster. I was on a previous network, and this was probably about 6, 7 years ago. And somebody asked me if I wanted my own show. And my first answer was going to be no. And I literally heard from Spirit say yes. So I said yes. And it was a couple days, they were opening a second part of their studio. It was Studio B. And they said, oh, don't worry. And I had a show every night from Monday through Friday, had no idea what I was doing. And 10 minutes before my first show, because the producer said, told me, don't worry, you won't need a topic. We're going to come on with you. We're going to be there to talk. I had nothing. Everything broke loose with the studio. I
Oh
had no
no.
guest. I wasn't even on video, so I couldn't even have dead air. And
Oh,
thank God a friend of mine, I used to call into his show all the time. He called in and saved my butt. And there was a
well,
scheduling snafu. So it was supposed to be 2 hours Monday through Friday. And there was two shows a week. And that particular night it was only 1 hour. And at that end of that hour, I kept going, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And here I am how many years later. But I think that's going to be excellent. You doing a podcast.
thank you. I'm excited. I'm
Mhm.
excited for it. Yeah.
So, what kind of things are you hoping to talk about? Obviously, about Soulphoria and.
A little bit about Soulphoria, but I'm really hoping to bring on people who've had to struggle with some form of resilience in their life and have
Mhm.
used a mystic aspect to help them through it. So my
Mm.
thought was to be able to help people. I really feel like we all need to build our resilience. I mean, and not just immunity wise, but spiritually, mentally, we need to be able to build up a resilience. And I think that resilience can be found within us, but there's also, again, in those different realms, there's different ways we can tap into different intuitive aspects and energetic aspects, the mystic components that could actually make us more resilient. So I'm hoping to coalesce that into interviews with different people.
That sounds really interesting because, especially over the last couple of years, what we've all been through, and there's so much divide, and a lot of people have said, nope, not for me. We've seen it. They've taken their own lives and what have you. And again, dealing with mental health with people, you know, if I never, because if you don't experience it yourself, it's very difficult to know exactly what something feels like. And I've had a few people explain, for example, depression, and the way they've described it has literally just pierced my soul to know that somebody is at that point. But those that have made it through to the other side, a lot of them I have found have said, I heard from somebody just to take it one more day. Or sometimes I'll say to people, sometimes all you can do is take it minute by minute or hour by hour, right?
It's true. And enjoy the moments in between. The moments where
Mhm.
you have those slightly brighter moments,
Mhm.
really savor those moments.
Mhm. I find the other thing, and I started this practice a couple of years ago. And when I wake up in the morning, sometimes I forget, but I really try to be disciplined about it. When I wake up in the morning, I do try to do a little bit of a meditation, but it's mostly centered around gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for the bed. When I go to bed too, thank you for the bed I'm sleeping in. Thank you. You know, it just feels so good and feeling in the sensations of like my body's sore. It feels great because, and when you talk to people, some people have never even considered how powerful gratitude is. They'll say, well, what do I have to be grateful for? And I'll say,
It's
well,
true.
you woke up this morning, right? You
Yeah.
had a roof over your head. Did you have a cup of coffee? Did you? It's those little things, but I also think it goes hand in hand that helps to build resilience. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the gratitude definitely builds resilience. I think resilience is a mindset, but it's also the energy that you find within yourself, I think.
Mhm.
So I think I saw a little thing just pop up there.
I put it up. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to distract you.
Oh.
I thought it was a kind comment. Thank you, Sarah. She
Oh,
said,
thank
keep
you,
up the
Sarah.
good work. And it
Yeah,
looks like it's directed at both of us. So thank you.
that's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, I think that gratitude can definitely play a role in helping to build your resilience, as well as just realizing that you are doing everything you can. So, an affirmation I've heard through one of the online yoga teachers before that I loved was at the end of every day, just ask yourself, have I done my best today?
I love
Yes,
it.
then this is enough. Then that is enough. And that allows you just to kind of feel like, okay, I've done my best today. And that can help build your resilience too.
That's so powerful because in this day and age, with the online that people are seeing and
Mhm.
these, it's fictitious. Even reality TV is fictitious.
Oh
And
yes.
people are measuring themselves. Even when I was growing up, I had a bit of an eating disorder in my later teens because, and I'm not blaming it on anybody, but you'd see these impossible models that were real thin. And it's like, my God, I've got this voluptuous body now that I embrace. But back then it was like, my God, I think I'm fat. And, you know, it leads to these type of things. So that's why I think it's so important what you were just talking about, instead of measuring
It,
ourselves against everybody else.
comparanoia is what I call it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's when we're comparing, and I think almost everybody is doing that. And it used to be a fear of being seen. Now there seems to be a fear of not being seen.
Yes,
If you're not
FOMO,
seen,
fear
you
of
don't
missing out.
exist. Exactly. But you do exist. I mean, that's where the spending time with yourself and just with yourself can help you to realize that you're a real person. You're a thinking, feeling, loving, beautiful being right now in this moment.
And
If you could
real.
just take the moment, everybody should just take the moment and hug themselves and be grateful for that.
Mhm.
Because I mean, that's a beautiful gift to give to yourself. And every time you do that, you're building up your resilience as well. You're making yourself a stronger person.
You just said that. You're exactly right. You're real. Because I remember again, we work with many different mentors over the years. We can all learn from one another. And one of the mentors that really, really stuck with me was, what other people think of me is none of my business. And I remember when I first heard that and I was like arguing with myself, going, of course it's my business. I care what people think. And then now I get it. Like it kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said. Have I done my best today?
It does. And unfortunately, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, we are social creatures, which means we care because it's built into our biology to care what people think. Because
Hmm.
back in the day, if we got kicked out of a tribe, how would we survive? So it's
Exactly.
also being accepting of the fact that, okay, sometimes I might have these things, but again, just feel the experience, accept it, acknowledge it, appreciate it, and then let it
Move
pass
on.
through you. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, then, again, I go back, I talk about this often on the podcast, but with working with people, say, for example, with terminal illnesses, and I said, I have yet to ever have met a person. I've been so deeply grateful for families to have asked me to be part of this process when their loved one is transitioning. And, you say we're in there for IV therapy or something. And when you're there, you're spending a lot of hours. So you have a lot of conversations. And I have yet to meet a human being, whether they were millionaires or they were from the poorest of the poor, ever say, gee, I don't think I spent enough money. Or, gee, I don't think I
I
did
know.
this or I did that. Almost every one of them, it was, geez, I wish I had told the people I really love or even just care about every single day, several times a day, how much they mean to me, because they do. Or, it's things like this that are so important.
It's true. It's the
Mm-hmm.
life experiences and the exchanges that we have with other people that really make up our life path and bring the beauty into it. Because you could be alone on a beautiful beach somewhere, but how long are you going to be happy there before you're going to be craving the loved ones in your life?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. And I think it's so important to be okay with being alone. I don't know if you run into a lot of people that feel like, I think we touched on a little earlier about the soulmate concept, but it's not even that. It's like that was part of the things people would
I
say.
see your
Well, I was
cat.
going
I'm
to,
sorry. I
what's
see your
that?
cat climbing up the back.
Oh,
It's
it's
adorable.
welcome to my world. I'm a real person. People laugh sometimes. Well, Dell, my partner, has a show on the network, yeah, on Thursday nights, a delicious recipe. And sometimes he'll come up here with dinner and I'll say, why do you just do that when I'm on my show? Or the dog will come up like, I'm a real person.
That's adorable, though.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even know she was in here. I guess she's in here. She's making her appearance.
She's like, I'm here.
I'm here. Hello.
Yeah.
I always tell her she's not chubby. She's just fluffy.
What's her name?
Sophie.
Sophie. Okay.
Yeah, Sophie. She heard me call her. She's very pretty. She's got beautiful green eyes. I have a German Shepherd too. I'm surprised she hasn't done it yet. She usually jumps up and has the tripod all going, and
That's
yeah,
adorable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody that watches this show, they all know them. And then my youngest lives with me, Justin. So he'll with the autism, so he'll come in. So everybody knows my whole family, and you'll notice it depends if you do your podcast maybe in a studio or something. But if you're at home and you've got home distractions, it happens.
It's true. Yeah.
I always say though too, when you watch a podcast, right? Do you care if that happens with the host? Like,
I love it.
everybody
love
does.
it.
I do too. Yeah.
It's fun. It's real. It's relatable, and it's quirky. Like, it's cute. I
Yeah.
like it.
Well, then it makes you a relatable person. And
Yes.
I really say it's not my job to judge, but I do try to be real. But again, talking about the masks that earlier, that really resonated with me because we do wear masks.
Yes, we do.
So
And
what
I
do we
think
do with the book with Soulphoria to help? What do we, with your thoughts with that? Are you integrating them, making people aware of it, or where are you going with that?
my hope is to make people discover the masks and the beliefs that they've been carrying and
I
wearing
love it.
and learn to remove them. That's why it's called the spiritual strip tease, because
Mhm.
we're literally stripping them off of ourselves until you enter the sublimely naked soul, which is the next part, which is where we're really solidified in that. I'm not talking about running down the street naked unless you really want to. I'm in full support, but
Yeah.
just don't put my name behind it.
Yeah. Don't put me on the arrest
Exactly.
record.
Alessandra encouraged this. I've got a recording. So
Yeah.
Sublimely Naked Soul is about just being naked in your spiritual self, your truly authentic self, with
Mhm.
no masks and no fears, and actually just allowing yourself to experience outwards.
That's a huge thing to do. It really,
Yeah.
really is. But
And it
I
can be
think,
challenging.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry?
It can be challenging. It can be very challenging for people. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, as much as you say you've done, I'll meet many people. I've done all the work. I don't need to do any more work. And I think we're always a work in progress.
Always. Yeah. We'd become
Mhm.
boring if we wouldn't need to be here if we were completely done.
No, I know that. But like I said, I love the concept of the book. I love it all. So I wanted to touch on the concepts again of the child, the adolescent, and then it's the adult feminine. Is that what you're talking about, the goddess?
It's the adult.
Okay, so
The
where would we
three
bring
make up
that
the
in?
goddess.
Pardon?
The three make up your goddess.
Okay, so where would we bring in our adult? And I know where it is. I'm really loving the concept, but for people just tuning in or listening, that's why I'm kind of going over a little bit because I notice Michelle's just here and a
No
few other
problem.
people. So
Can I just comment on Michelle's comment
please,
here?
You
Okay, so
comment anytime. That's why I highlight them.
So she has said, I love being alone, but sometimes I hate it. And I understand that. And I think it's something else I just offer as an option for people to consider. Are you feeling alone or lonely? Because if you're lonely, that's a very different experience than being alone. And being alone, you can really learn to, like, I can entertain myself for hours when I'm alone. And I'll laugh and I'll giggle and I'll just do silly things. And I mean, just be aware, is it loneliness or alone? Because aloneness is a beautiful gift.
I like that. You have such a way with words.
Oh, thank you.
I was talking to a friend today, and again, it was something we had talked about earlier, and she was saying, well, they live now permanently in Mexico. They're from Canada. And she was saying, well, I've really been overindulging the last few days. I've been eating food I don't normally eat and what have you. And I stopped right in the middle it was a voice message, and I messaged her back and I said, I hope you embrace it, because all I keep hearing is it's food for the soul. It must be what you need right now. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what it's all about, really, is just, it sounds like, you know what I think the most I resonated with was the analogy that you gave about the car with the mind, body, and soul.
Yes.
I did. So that's kind of, is that where we're going with Soulphoria? Kind of integrating it all, stripping it down, like things that are preventing us from being who,
the idea with Soulphoria is to leave you feeling so impressively and incredibly deeply proud of your soul self that you don't have to wear masks. You don't have to fake it. You're authentic and you're out there and you're naked in your sublimely naked soul and you're confident in it. My hope is that it will really bring joy to people and make them connected to themselves, so they're not seeking answers all the time outside of themselves, that you can actually trust the answers that you're getting within yourself and trust the path that you're on and live it confidently.
I love it. I love it. Sounds like everybody in the world needs to read this book. What a different
world. Well, I would love everyone.
But what a different world we would be in, wouldn't we?
It's true. It's true. We would be in a very different world. Yeah.
Okay, so just something that came up in my mind. I'm noticing a real climate of fear because of people that choose to, because if we turned off, say, multimedia, not podcast, maybe, no, I'm just joking, but you know what I mean, like TV and news and newspapers and things like that. If those didn't exist, I don't think we would have been in the climate that we were for the last 2 years. And I'm not trying to get political. Where I'm going with this is, how can people use your concepts in the book to get out of that place of fear, for example, because there's a lot of that collectively.
Well, I think a lot of the exercises in the book will empower people to be able to trust themselves more. And when you trust yourselves more, you're not relying on the feedback, like the social loop feedback and all of those different things. So that allows you to remove yourself from that fear. I also talk about doing a spiritual detox. So a spiritual detox would actually be shutting yourself down from social media for a week and not reading the news and not touching anything except focusing on your internal self. So that means no news. It means even spiritual stuff. Like some people will shut everything down, but they'll still be doing, grasping over here for the spiritual stuff. We want to actually detox you from everything, because that will actually allow you to reconnect with yourself in a pure way.
Okay, so how do we make that happen? And I'm not challenging or anything, because I'm hearing these questions in people's minds. That sounds like a great thing, but I've got life happening. I've got family, I've got work, I've got all this stuff going on. How do I go to that place? I want to go to that place, but how do I integrate it all?
So my suggestion is to start off small. It doesn't have to be a week. It's just like meditation. You can sit for 1 minute and you will get a gift from it. Let's say you decide that, sometimes I've told myself when I've been very anxious about different life situations, I might say, okay, I'm going to give myself the next 3 hours. I'm giving myself permission not to worry about anything, just to put it all away and not to think about it. And you can do that. So you can do it in little chunks and build up from there. It doesn't have to all happen at once.
I love it. Now, Michelle wrote that she said when you had asked if she was alone, or she said probably lonely. So what can we offer for Michelle from your wisdom? You really do have a beautiful way of saying things, and I'm so glad I had you on today.
Thank you. I would say, Michelle, if you Again, spend time with yourself doing things you'd really want to do. So ask your teen side, or ask your child side, or ask your adult side, what would you like to do today? Start with your child, and maybe she wants to go for a hike, maybe she wants to go coloring, maybe she wants to go swimming, but ask her what she would like to do and do that for an hour, and then see how you feel, because you might find that the exchanges between these two aspects can be so incredibly healing. It removes the loneliness and makes you to realize how beautiful it can be for you to be alone with yourself.
Do you find that nature can really exacerbate or increase the healing process when looking at, say, being alone and not feeling lonely?
Nature is a huge gift, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like in nature, you're never alone. You have the trees. If you're like me and you go for walks, I stop and I touch the trees. I'll talk to the trees. I'll
Yes.
name the plants. I mean, everywhere you're surrounded by life. And if you're surrounded by life, you're not alone. That's the thing.
But we're never really alone. And there's, when people
No.
feel that they're lonely, and I'm not pointing, she said, okay, thanks, I understand. And I'm not pointing a finger at you, Michelle. But what I'm saying is many of us have felt alone. But I know also Michelle has some understanding in spirituality as well, that, we have our ancestors, like you said, or our guides, or with the Akashic records, we call them the masters, teachers, and loved ones, the ascended there's so many out there. And then in spirit, like you said, in nature, my goodness, the nature spirits, if you believe in that. I'm a big proponent of that. Right? We're never alone.
Oh no, never. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're wanting to connect with anything like ancestors or entities, then my suggestion is to start by making a commitment to build a relationship with them. So you can find an object, like I have a bracelet here, if you can see it. And this to me represents a specific energy. And so I use this to connect with this energy. And that actually means inviting them in and spending time with them and listening, and not just talking at them. You're not just going to be talking at them. You actually want to receive back, have a conversation. So she just wrote here on.
She said, I live on 200 acres, but recently lost family, still recovering. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I'm sorry for your loss. We were talking about grieving earlier, actually, in the show quite a bit, Michelle. So if you get a chance to tune in to the beginning of the show, I hope that maybe something we've talked about might help. Or if you have anything else to add, you're more than welcome, Alessandra.
I was just going to say, if she's on 200 acres, if there's plants around there that may mean something to her or she's drawn to, take a walk of the acres and look for trees or plants that you could connect with, and start to treat them like they're your family. Actually exchange with them, and you'll build a bond.
I agree. Like I said, my partner, Dell, with his show here, the reason I mentioned it, and I'm going to read your comment, because she said that's probably where my lonely comes from. But I was just going to add, and Michelle, you've probably heard me say this before, but I never thought I'd ever have a conversation with him about fairies. He's never disrespectful about what I do, but he is the ultimate skeptic. Well, we have a fairy gnome garden in the front yard now. And I just said to him, we were looking at the garden the other day, and I said, oh my gosh, we're becoming old people. Look at us marveling over our garden. We know really that's not what it's all about, but so Michelle, you had added here, you said, thanks, Alessandra. Thanks, Laura. Because she said, that's probably where my lonely comes from. That's understandable.
That's very understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if it would just all go away and we could process it quickly, but there's no timetable with grieving, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because it gives us the time I think we need on an individual timetable. There really is no timetable. It's your timetable
And
to process.
allow
Go ahead.
yourself to experience all the feelings that are coming through with the grieving process, because there might be anger, there might be sadness, there might be numbness at some points, but just experience them and move through them. Don't push
Mm-hmm.
them away, because that will just delay it. It will cause stagnation of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I hope you can listen to the earlier part, Michelle. And then if you have any questions, I put Alessandra's contact information on the banner, but I can certainly, direct. You've got a page, don't you? You've got a web page, I know you do, but do you
Yeah,
have a page on Facebook or any other
I
social media?
do. They can find me under
Okay.
Alessandra Segrado or
Okay.
soulphoria.ca.
Oh, good. Okay. Because
Yeah.
I can certainly connect you to Michelle. She said I will later. Yeah, I know it's morning over there right now. So thank you for tuning in because she's over in Australia. So
Okay.
yeah, she's a sweetheart. Her and I connected, and I think we have the same birthday. We didn't even realize. She just happened to find my show one night, and she makes orgonite like I do and resin, and so a lot of people that tune into the show, you'll find that when you're doing your podcast, that you'll find all these people that you connect with. So
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
so those are the places we can get a hold of you. Then, like you said, she sent 2 X's. So at Alessandra Segrado on Facebook. Is there any other social media? And then your website is
Instagram,
okay.
Twitter, and then my website is Soulphoria. So Soulphoria.
Okay.
Soulphoria.ca.
Yeah, that's how I knew you were Canadian when I went to the website
Yes.
because usually Gavin puts where people are from and he didn't put it. And then when I seen the website, I thought, oh, she's got to be Canadian. So when can people, and no pressure, but when can people look for these classes that you're looking at, incorporating with the book and what have you?
I'm aiming for the fall to have them launched. But if they
Wow.
go to the website, they can sign up for notifications and updates.
Oh, good. I'm going to do that too. So,
Okay,
because there'll be people that'll see this, that'll send me messages and ask me about it. So I'll definitely make sure.
great.
And
And they can get the book on Chapters or Barnes and Noble and all over
that
the
was my
place.
next question.
Yeah.
So now with the workbook or the exercises, sorry, there isn't a workbook. The exercises, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but would they be making notation right in the book? Is there space for it, or would
This
they
is the
need a
book.
notebook
Sorry.
or?
I'm just going to show you. This is Soulphoria.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll just show you. This is very
Thank you.
cool. I had someone who purchased the book. She made me this beautiful mandala.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
But the exercises will have not lots of space, but there is some
That's why
space.
I asked, because
Yeah.
some people do that, and some people you need like sorry, I didn't mean to yell there. I got all
No, that's
excited.
okay.
That's why I asked. So I'm going to end a few minutes early. I don't know why I can't plug my phone in here, you guys, with my iPhone 12. And it is, I can only plug the headphones in. If I don't have the headphones in, I don't know what it is with the iPhone. You can't hear with StreamYard. Like I literally, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do this to you guys. I will be like this, trying to hear. And I don't want the phone to die. And we only had another few minutes anyways. But I want to thank you, Alessandra, for being here. Is there any final words you want to add before we sign off?
I just hope that everybody who picks up the book enjoys it, and that you all take some time over the next week to spend some time with yourself, maybe a little bit of self-pleasure and self-love, and just explore what it is to be you. Become curious about yourself.
I love it. I hope that I can have you back on here again when you've got your next phase with the book or what have you. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. I'm so glad you came on this show.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Lorilei, for having me on.
It was awesome. I love this type of conversation. It probably seemed like I'm all over, but I get so excited about this and I've got
No,
like a million
I
questions in my
appreciate
mind.
it.
So I want to thank you guys all for being here, either whether you're listening live now or you may be listening to the replay. Please be sure to share our YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio, and UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and you can share that with your friends. Also, if you're looking for just the audio version, we are carried anywhere where podcasts or talk radio is carried, such as SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. What am I missing? Spreaker, Podbean. Those are just a few, though. Pretty well, if you've got an app to listen to talk radio, iTunes, you'll find us on there. And I want to also let you know, if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock, whether that's to book a healing session or a reading. Maybe you've got a guest idea or show suggestion or questions, feel free to reach out. Also, I have 2 groups on Facebook. All Things Paranormal is under Paranormal University. And then for many of the concepts we've talked about tonight, more esoteric, spirituality, power of the mind, and positivity, the Angel Rocker Tribe. And I'd love to have you be a part of that. I want to send you all so much love and light. Next week, so far, excuse me, I believe I'm trying to remember the date. Yes. Next week, it's a long weekend here in Canada, which Alessandra will know, or a bank holiday for you, those of you that call it that. I don't have a guest booked on the Monday because I think I have family coming in from Toronto. So either have a replay or I do have some pre-recorded interviews to do. Or if I'm in town, because our in-laws aren't coming and the wife of the couple is a doula. She's doing a doula role. So it's whenever that baby comes. If worse comes to worse, she gets stuck with little old me. Anyways, I send you all so much love and light. We'll see you next week. Take care. Thanks again, Alessandra.
Thank you.